What does it truly mean to love when the world itself becomes your enemy? Is courage born from power, or from the willingness to risk everything for someone you cannot abandon? Leadership is not about titles, it is about action. And in the tale of Beren and Lúthien, action rises from love that refuses to surrender. Imagine a lone mortal wandering through ancient forests, airing a sun so pure that time seems to stop a moment, where fate awakens and a simple meeting begins to reshape the destiny of Middle. The story of Beren and Lúthien is the emotional heart of Tolkien's mythology, a tale where love stands against darkness, pride, and death itself. It brings together 16 chapters of struggle, sacrifice, courage, and loss into one powerful journey. This is not merely a romance between a mortal man and an immortal elf-maiden. It is a story about choice, defiance, and the strength found in commitment. From Beren's first step into Doriath to Lúthien's fearless challenge of gods and monsters, the narrative shows that true power is not inherited or commanded. It is earned through action guided by love. Their story proves that even in a world ruled by fate and shadow, one brave choice can change history forever. Enjoyed the video? Subscribe to our channel, Height. I like, share it with friends, and leave a comment. Don't forget to hit the bell icon for all updates. Chapter 1. The Meeting That Changed Fate. What does it truly mean to begin a journey when the world has already taken everything from you? Is courage something carried from birth, or does it awaken only when loss leaves no other choice? Imagine a lone man walking through ruined lands, hunted by enemies and haunted by memory, until a single moment of beauty halts his steps and reshapes his destiny forever. This is where the tale of Beren and Lúthien truly begins, not with armies or prophecy, but with silence, grief, and an unexpected song beneath the moon. Beren's life opens in shadow. He is the last survivor of his people, a mortal shaped by exile, destruction, and the long echo of war. The First Age has already stripped him of home and kin, teaching him that survival is not the same as living. He carries the weight of memory like an unseen wound, moving through Middle-earth as one already half lost. Yet this emptiness is not weakness. It is the ground upon which resolve begins to grow. Tolkien presents Beren not as a hero forged by triumph, but as one shaped by endurance, reminding us that true strength often rises from those who have nothing left to protect except their purpose. When Beren crosses into the guarded realm of Doriath, he steps unknowingly across a boundary between despair and meaning. Doriath is a land unlike any he has known, protected by enchantment, untouched by the worst scars of war. Here, order still exists. Beauty still breathes. This contrast is essential to the story's foundation. By placing Beren's grief beside Doriath's serenity, Tolkien creates a powerful tension between what has been lost and what might still be possible. The flow of the narrative gently shifts from survival toward awakening, guiding the reader without force. It is within the forest of Neldareth that fate finally speaks. Lúthien appears beneath the moonlight, dancing and singing with a grace that feels older than time itself. This moment is not written as conquest or pursuit. Beren does not interrupt her. He watches, stunned into stillness, as though the world has paused to allow beauty to exist undisturbed. Her song does not erase his sorrow, but it gives it meaning. Love, in this story, is not escape it, is recognition. Beren names her Tinville, Nightingale, not to claim her, but to honor the transformation she has awakened within him. This meeting establishes the central argument of the entire tale. Love is not passive emotion, but active force. It does not soften reality, it clarifies it. From this moment forward, Beren's choices are no longer guided by fear or instinct alone, but by commitment. Tolkien's strength lies in showing how love does not arrive as comfort, but as responsibility. Because Beren loves, he must act. Because he chooses to act, destiny begins to shift. The story deepens when Beren is brought before King Thingol. Here, personal devotion collides with authority, tradition, and pride. Thingol is not portrayed as purely cruel. He is protective, powerful, and deeply aware of the danger surrounding his realm. Yet his response reveals a truth about power: it often hides fear behind impossible demands. By requiring Beren to retrieve a Silmaril from Morgoth's crown, Thingol believes he is ending the matter. Instead, he gives it purpose. The impossible task strips Beren of illusion and leaves him with only resolve. Leadership, Tolkien suggests, is not granted by kings. It is revealed through choice. The narrative flows seamlessly from love to defiance, from defiance to purpose. Beren does not accept the quest because he believes he will succeed. He accepts it because refusing would mean denying the truth he has discovered about himself. This is courage without certainty, strength without guarantee. Tolkien avoids weak language here. The writing is firm, confident, and clear. The message is unmistakable. Meaning is not found in safety, but in faithfulness. Lúthien's role in this opening chapter is equally significant, even when she is not present on the page. Her influence shapes the direction of the story before she ever lifts her voice in action. She is not established as a passive symbol, but as a being of will, depth, and inner freedom. The reader senses early that she will not remain behind walls or obey fear, and this preparation ensures the story remains coherent and believable. Every future act grows naturally from who she is here. Connectivity is one of the chapter's greatest strengths. The themes introduced, loss, love, defiance, are not isolated ideas. They are woven tightly together, each leading logically to the next. Because Beren has lost everything, love matters. Because love matters, action follows. Because action is chosen freely, fate responds. This cause and effect structure gives the narrative unity and momentum, ensuring the reader never feels lost or disconnected. By the end of this chapter, Beren leaves Doriath not as a doomed man, but as one who has chosen his path. The world remains dangerous. Morgoth still reigns. Darkness has not been defeated, yet something essential has changed. Purpose has replaced emptiness. Love has transformed grief into direction. This is the true beginning of the legend, not the quest itself, but the decision to walk it. Tolkien's opening lesson is quiet but powerful. When life removes everything familiar, what remains is choice. And when that choice is guided by love rather than fear, even a mortal life can alter the course of history. The meeting of Beren and Lúthien teaches us that leadership begins not with command, but with commitment, and that the smallest moment one song in a forest can awaken a destiny that echoes through ages. If this chapter asks anything of the reader, it is this: do not wait for certainty before you act with courage. Do not believe that loss disqualifies you from meaning. Like Beren, step forward even when the path is unclear. Like Lúthien, let your presence challenge silence, because when love chooses action, fate listens and the world begins to change. Chapter 2. The Price of Love and the Burden of an Impossible Oath. What happens after love is declared, but the world refuses to accept it? When devotion meets authority, though is Lao bend, or does it harden into resolve? Imagine standing before a throne, not to seek favor, but to defend the truth of your heart, knowing that honesty itself may become a sentence of death. This chapter begins where courage is tested not by swords, but by pride, power, and impossible demands. Beren's declaration of love does not bring celebration. It brings judgment. In the halls of King Thingol, love is no longer private feeling but public challenge. Thingol is a ruler shaped by long years of guardianship, wary of the outside world and fiercely protective of his daughter and his realm. To him, Beren is not a hero but a threat, a mortal whose love dares to cross boundaries meant to separate the fate of elves and men. This tension establishes a central conflict of the chapter. When authority feels challenged, it often responds with conditions rather than compassion. The demand for a Silmaril is not merely cruel. It is symbolic. The Silmarils represent the highest beauty, the greatest loss, and the deepest corruption of the age. By demanding one from Morgoth's iron crown, Thingol believes he is speaking the language of impossibility. Yet Tolkien's strength lies in showing how impossible demands often create unbreakable resolve. Because the task cannot be achieved, it becomes pure. Beren is stripped of ambition, strategy, and illusion. All that remains is commitment. Here the narrative's flow deepens. Beren does not protest. He does not argue fairness. He accepts the condition because love has already reshaped his understanding of worth. This moment defines the thesis of the chapter. Courage is not confidence in success, but faithfulness to purpose. Tolkien avoids hesitation in language and intent. Beren's acceptance is calm, direct, and irreversible. Once spoken, the oath reshapes his identity. He is no longer merely a survivor of ruin. He becomes a bearer of purpose. The chapter carefully connects love with responsibility. By choosing Lúthien, Beren accepts consequence. Tolkien refuses to romanticize love as escape. Instead, love demands sacrifice, clarity, and risk. This cause-and-effect relationship strengthens the narrative's unity. Because love is chosen, danger follows. Because danger follows, character is revealed. The story does not jump ahead. It moves steadily, allowing each decision to deepen the weight of the next. Lúthien's response to her father's decree is equally important, even though her actions are still restrained by circumstance. Her grief is not weakness. It is awareness. She understands the cost of the oath more clearly than any other character in this chapter. Where others see a challenge, she sees potential death. This emotional insight prepares the reader for her future defiance. Tolkien ensures connectivity by planting emotional truth before action, making her later choices inevitable rather than surprising. As Beren leaves Doriath, the tone of the narrative shifts. Protection gives way to exposure. The safe borders of enchantment fall behind him, replaced by the open dangers of Middle. This transition is smooth and purposeful. It mirrors the internal shift within Beren himself, from belonging to isolation, from hope supported by presence, to hope sustained by belief. The journey outward becomes a journey inward, reinforcing the chapter's thematic cohesion. Throughout this chapter, Tolkien contrasts power and leadership. Thingol rules through command and boundary. Beren leads through conviction and action. Neither is presented as simple villain or hero, but the story makes its preference clear. Authority that fears loss creates walls. Courage that accepts loss creates movement. This contrast strengthens the SSA's argument without moral confusion. The shadow of Morgoth looms larger here, not through direct appearance, but through influence. His crown becomes the measure of courage. His darkness becomes the test of love. By invoking Morgoth without yet confronting him, Tolkien builds tension naturally, allowing fear to exist before conflict. This pacing maintains flow and prevents narrative overload. By the end of the chapter, the oath has been spoken. The path, chosen, and retreat made impossible. Beren's journey is no longer about desire, but about integrity. He walks forward knowing the odds are beyond reason, yet his steps are steady because meaning has replaced fear. The chapter closes not with action, but with intention. A quiet, powerful reminder that the most decisive battles are often fought within. The lesson of this chapter is uncompromising. Love that costs nothing changes nothing. Purpose that avoids risk carries no weight. Tolkien challenges the reader to see commitment not as comfort, but as courage made visible. When Beren accepts the impossible task, he teaches us that dignity lies not in outcome, but in faithfulness. If this chapter calls the reader to action, it is this: do not measure your worth by the limits others place before you. When your purpose is clear, even impossible demands lose their power to stop you. Walk forward not because victory is guaranteed, but because meaning demands motion. That is how legends begin, not with triumph, but with a vow that refuses to break. Chapter 2. The Price of Love and the Burden of an Impossible Oath. What happens after love is declared, but the world refuses to accept it? When devotion meets authority, though is Lao bend, or does it harden into resolve? Imagine standing before a throne, not to seek favor, but to defend the truth of your heart, knowing that honesty itself may become a sentence of death. This chapter begins where courage is tested not by swords, but by pride, power, and impossible demands. Beren's declaration of love does not bring celebration. It brings judgment. In the halls of King Thingol, love is no longer private feeling but public challenge. Thingol is a ruler shaped by long years of guardianship, wary of the outside world and fiercely protective of his daughter and his realm. To him, Beren is not a hero but a threat, a mortal whose love dares to cross boundaries meant to separate the fate of elves and men. This tension establishes a central conflict of the chapter. When authority feels challenged, it often responds with conditions rather than compassion. The demand for a Silmaril is not merely cruel. It is symbolic. The Silmarils represent the highest beauty, the greatest loss, and the deepest corruption of the age. By demanding one from Morgoth's Iron Crown, Thingol believes he is speaking the language of impossibility. Yet Tolkien's strength lies in showing how impossible demands often create unbreakable resolve. Because the task cannot be achieved, it becomes pure. Beren is stripped of ambition, strategy, and illusion. All that remains is commitment. Here the narrative's flow deepens. Beren does not protest. He does not argue fairness. He accepts the condition because love has already reshaped his understanding of worth. This moment defines the thesis of the chapter. Courage is not confidence in success, but faithfulness to purpose. Tolkien avoids hesitation in language and intent. Beren's acceptance is calm, direct, and irreversible. Once spoken, the oath reshapes his identity. He is no longer merely a survivor of ruin. He becomes a bearer of purpose. The chapter carefully connects love with responsibility. By choosing Lúthien, Beren accepts consequence. Tolkien refuses to romanticize love as escape. Instead, love demands sacrifice, clarity, and risk. This cause-and-effect relationship strengthens the narrative's unity. Because love is chosen, danger follows. Because danger follows, character is revealed. The story does not jump ahead. It moves steadily, allowing each decision to deepen the weight of the next. Lúthien's response to her father's decree is equally important, even though her actions are still restrained by circumstance. Her grief is not weakness. It is awareness. She understands the cost of the oath more clearly than any other character in this chapter. Where others see a challenge, she sees potential death. This emotional insight prepares the reader for her future defiance. Tolkien ensures connectivity by planting emotional truth before action, making her later choices inevitable rather than surprising. As Beren leaves Doriath, the tone of the narrative shifts. Protection gives way to exposure. The safe borders of enchantment fall behind him, replaced by the open dangers of Middle. This transition is smooth and purposeful. It mirrors the internal shift within Beren himself, from belonging to isolation, from hope supported by presence, to hope sustained by belief. The journey outward becomes a journey inward, reinforcing the chapter's thematic cohesion. Throughout this chapter, Tolkien contrasts power and leadership. Thingol rules through command and boundary. Beren leads through conviction and action. Neither is presented as simple villain or hero, but the story makes its preference clear. Authority that fears loss creates walls. Courage that accepts loss creates movement. This contrast strengthens the SSA's argument without moral confusion. The shadow of Morgoth looms larger here, not through direct appearance, but through influence. His crown becomes the measure of courage. His darkness becomes the test of love. By invoking Morgoth without yet confronting him, Tolkien builds tension naturally, allowing fear to exist before conflict. This pacing maintains flow and prevents narrative overload. By the end of the chapter, the oath has been spoken. The path, chosen, and retreat made impossible. Beren's journey is no longer about desire, but about integrity. He walks forward knowing the odds are beyond reason, yet his steps are steady because meaning has replaced fear. The chapter closes not with action, but with intention. A quiet, powerful reminder that the most decisive battles are often fought within. The lesson of this chapter is uncompromising. Love that costs nothing changes nothing. Purpose that avoids risk carries no weight. Tolkien challenges the reader to see commitment not as comfort, but as courage made visible. When Beren accepts the impossible task, he teaches us that dignity lies not in outcome, but in faithfulness. If this chapter calls the reader to action, it is this: do not measure your worth by the limits others place before you. When your purpose is clear, even impossible demands lose their power to stop you. Walk forward not because victory is guaranteed, but because meaning demands motion. That is how legends begin, not with triumph, but with a vow that refuses to break. Chapter 3. The Road into Shadow, and the first true test: what happens when a vow leaves the safety of words and enters the danger of the world. When intention must finally face hunger, darkness, and fear, does resolve remain pure, or does it fracture under pressure? Imagine walking alone toward lands where hope is spoken only in whispers, knowing that every step forward increases the distance from safety and the closeness of death. This chapter marks the moment when Beren's promise ceases to be symbolic and becomes real. Beren's journey away from Doriath is a descent from protection into exposure. The enchantments of the elven realm fade gradually, not suddenly, allowing the reader to feel the loss before the danger fully arrives. Tolkien uses this transition deliberately. Courage, he suggests, is not tested in sudden catastrophe, but in sustained endurance. As the forests thin and the lands grow harsher, Beren's isolation becomes complete. There are no witnesses now, no assurances, only the steady echo of his oath. The physical hardship of the road mirrors the inner weight Beren carries. Hunger, exhaustion, and watchfulness dominate his days. Yet Tolkien does not rush these moments. Each hardship strengthens the narrative's central argument. Endurance is a form of leadership. Beren does not command armies or inspire followers. He leads himself forward, step by step, guided by meaning rather than hope of reward. This consistency reinforces the story's connective tissue, linking love, oath, and action into a single, unbroken thread. As Beren moves closer to the darker regions of Middle-earth, the presence of Morgoth's power becomes more tangible. Orcs roam the lands, fear spreads among creatures, and the natural world itself feels wounded. Tolkien's language subtly shifts here, growing heavier, reinforcing the idea that evil does not merely threaten life, it distorts it. This environmental storytelling strengthens flow by allowing setting to carry emotion without interrupting the narrative. The chapter's tension deepens when Beren encounters Celegorm and Curufin, sons of Their arrival marks the first true test of Beren's judgment. These elves are powerful, proud, and driven by their own oath, one rooted not in love, but in possession and obsession. Tolkien's brilliance lies in the parallel he creates. Two oaths exist side by side, both unbreakable, yet radically different in moral weight. Celegorm and Curufin offer protection, guidance, and alliance. On the surface, their offer appears generous, but beneath it lies control. They do not follow Beren's purpose. They seek to bend it to their own. This encounter forces Beren to confront a crucial truth. Not every helping hand strengthens your journey. Some alliances promise safety at the cost of integrity. The chapter's strength is sharpened by this moral complexity, avoiding simple good versus evil dynamics. Beren's decision to travel with them is cautious, not trusting. Tolkien does not portray him as naive. Instead, Beren balances survival with awareness, showing that wisdom is not avoidance of risk, but careful engagement with it. This nuance preserves character consistency and narrative flow. The reader understands that courage sometimes requires compromise without surrender. Lúthien's presence, though distant, remains emotionally active in this chapter. Her absence is not emptiness, it is pursuer. Every decision Beren makes is measured against the reason he walks this road. Tolkien ensures connectivity by repeatedly anchoring action to motivation. The story never forgets why the journey began, even as new dangers arise. The tension reaches a turning point when Beren is captured and brought to Nargothrond. Here, power takes a different form. Finrod Felagund represents leadership rooted in loyalty and honor rather than fear or possession. The contrast between Finrod and the Sons of Fuena reinforces the chapter's thematic unity. Leadership is defined not by strength alone, but by willingness to sacrifice for truth. Beren's revelation of his quest before Finrod is one of the chapter's most powerful moments, when Finrod hears the name of Barahir and remembers the debt he owes. The story circles back on itself, binding past and present together. This moment demonstrates Tolkien's mastery of connectivity. Actions ripple forward through time. Honor, once given, becomes destiny. Finrod's choice to aid Beren is costly and deliberate. He does not act out of impulse, but out of responsibility. By honoring his oath, he reinforces the chapter's core message. Promises shape the future, whether spoken in love or loyalty. This decision also raises the stakes of the narrative, transforming Beren's solitary quest into a shared sacrifice. The sons of Fëanor react with bitterness and betrayal, revealing the destructive nature of their oath. Their refusal to support Finrod exposes the moral consequences of obsession. Tolkien does not condemn them with commentary. He allows their choices to speak for themselves. This restraint maintains narrative flow while deepening ethical weight. As the chapter closes, the road ahead darkens further. Beren is no longer alone, yet the danger has multiplied. Companionship brings strength, but also greater loss. The reader senses that future suffering is unavoidable, yet meaningful. This balance between hope and inevitability gives the chapter its emotional resonance. The lesson of Chapter 3 is clear and uncompromising. True tests do not arrive with clarity. They come disguised as opportunity, safety, or alliance. Leadership is revealed not by who walks beside you, but by what you refuse to surrender. Beren's journey teaches us that integrity is not loud, heroic, or celebrated. It is quiet, steady, and often lonely. If this chapter leaves the reader with a call to action, it is this: choose your alliances wisely and your purpose fiercely. Let your vows be guided by love and honor, not fear or pride, because the road into shadow does not break those who walk with meaning. It reveals who they truly are. Chapter 4. Chains of Darkness and the loyalty that defies fear. What happens when courage meets betrayal and hope is locked behind iron walls? When freedom is stripped away and strength is reduced to silence, does purpose survive, or does it fade into despair? Imagine a place where light barely breathes, where songs die before they are sung, and where promises are tested not by distance, but by suffering. This chapter enters the heart of captivity, where loyalty becomes the last form of resistance. The journey with Finrod and his companions does not move toward glory, but toward entrapment. From the moment they leave Nargothrond in secret, the shadow of Morgoth tightens around them. Tolkien's pacing here is deliberate and heavy. Each step forward feels burdened, reminding the reader that sacrifice rarely announces itself as noble when it begins. Leadership, once again, is not triumph, but willingness to endure consequence. Their capture by Sauron is swift and merciless. The fall into Tol Ngorhoth marks a dramatic shift in the narrative's tone. Here, power is no longer distant or symbolic. It is immediate, intelligent, and cruel. Sauron does not rule through chaos, but through control, knowledge, and fear. His interrogation is psychological as much as physical, turning truth into a weapon and silence into a threat. Tolkien uses this moment to explore the anatomy of evil, not as madness, but as calculated domination. Imprisonment strips the company of identity. They are reduced to shadows behind stone, separated from one another, tested individually, yet this fragmentation reveals the chapter's core strength. Unity of purpose does not require proximity. Even in isolation, the oath binds them. Tolkien reinforces connectivity by returning repeatedly to memory of love, of debt, of loyalty, as the only remaining freedom. Finrod's role reaches its moral peak here. As king, he could have chosen safety long before this moment. Instead, he chooses responsibility to the very end. His resistance to Sauron's power through song is one of the most profound expressions of leadership in the legendarium. Song becomes defiance. Memory becomes armor. This battle is not won, yet its significance lies in refusal. Even when overwhelmed, Finrod does not yield his truth. Beren's suffering is quieter, but no less significant. Bound and powerless, He confronts the terrifying possibility that his quest may end before it truly begins. Yet Tolkien refuses to portray despair as surrender. Instead, despair sharpens Beren's understanding of what truly matters. Love is no longer a distant inspiration. It becomes survival itself. This internal shift keeps the narrative emotionally grounded, ensuring that action never disconnects from meaning. The deaths of Finrod's companions unfold one by one, deliberate and cruel. Tolkien does not sensationalize their loss. He presents it as inevitable within the logic of evil power, reinforcing the story's ethical clarity. Evil consumes without remorse. Good endures without guarantee. This stark contrast strengthens the thematic backbone of the chapter. Finrod's final sacrifice stands as the chapter's emotional and moral climax. By giving his life to save Beren, he transforms kingship into service. There is no crown here, no throne, only a choice made in darkness. Tolkien's message is unambiguous. The highest authority is exercised when one life is given to preserve another's purpose. Finrod's death is not defeat, it is transmission. His loyalty passes forward, empowering Beren to continue. When Beren is left alone in the pit, the silence is overwhelming. Yet this silence is not empty, it is charged with consequence. The narrative slows, allowing the weight of loss to settle. This pause is essential for flow, preventing the chapter from rushing past its most painful truth. Loss, once suffered, reshapes everything that follows. The arrival of Lúthien's influence, though still distant, begins to stir at the edges of the chapter. Even without her physical presence, her will moves events forward. Tolkien subtly prepares the reader for her emergence by shifting focus from endurance to change. The balance of the story begins to tilt. Where darkness once controlled the pace, resistance begins to grow. By the chapter's end, Beren is no longer simply a man on a quest. He is a bearer of sacrifice. Finrod's death has deepened the meaning of the oath, expanding it beyond love into responsibility toward all who have suffered for it. This evolution is critical to the narrative's unity. The quest is no longer personal alone. It has become collective. The lesson of Chapter 4 is severe and honest. Leadership is proven not when commands are obeyed, but when sacrifice is accepted. Loyalty does not protect from loss. It gives loss meaning. Tolkien challenges the reader to understand that darkness may win battles, but it never claims the final truth. If this chapter speaks a call to action, it is this: remain faithful, even when faithfulness offers no escape. Choose integrity when power demands silence, because even in chains, the will that refuses to surrender shapes the future. And from such quiet defiance, the strongest light is born. Chapter 5, The Power That Breaks Chains, and the Rise of Defiant. Will what happens when hope refuses to remain distant and steps directly into darkness? When love is no longer a memory or a promise, but an active force challenging terror itself. Imagine a single figure standing against a fortress of fear, armed not with armies, but with will, voice, an unbreakable purpose. This chapter marks the turning of the tide, where captivity meets defiance and destiny changes hands. Lúthien's journey begins not in hesitation, but in decision. Confined within Doriath, she refuses the safety that others call wisdom. Tolkien presents her resolve as calm and absolute, not impulsive rebellion. This distinction matters. Her choice is not emotional escape, it is moral clarity. Love, in this chapter, becomes action sharpened by courage. The narrative flow shifts from endurance to initiative, signaling a profound transformation in the story's momentum. Her escape from Doriath is both literal and symbolic. The enchantments meant to protect her become barriers she must overcome. In doing so, Tolkien establishes a critical theme. Protection without freedom becomes another form of imprisonment. Lúthien's defiance does not reject care, but rejects confinement that denies purpose. This movement strengthens the connective tissue of the narrative, aligning freedom with responsibility rather than recklessness. Disguised and guided by her own power, Lúthien travels into lands shaped by fear. Where Beren walked with endurance, she walks with intention. Tolkien does not diminish danger here. Instead, he heightens it. Morgoth's influence still stains the world, and Sauron's fortress remains a place where hope is crushed systematically. Yet the tone has changed. Darkness is no longer absolute. It is about to be challenged. The confrontation at Tol Gorhoth is the chapter's defining moment. Lúthien does not attack with force, but with song, a song so powerful that it reaches into the foundations of cruelty itself. Tolkien uses this moment to redefine strength. Power, he argues, is not domination, but mastery over fear. Her song does not destroy, it unmakes his control. This distinction preserves moral clarity while elevating the narrative's philosophical depth. Sauron's defeat is not humiliating chaos, but forced submission. He yields because control fails him. This outcome reinforces the story's consistent message. Evil relies on certainty and fear. When those collapse, its authority dissolves. The fortress falls, not because it is assaulted, but because it can no longer hold what it was built upon. The flow of the chapter remains steady, allowing the victory to feel earned rather than abrupt. Beran's release is quiet but profound. He emerges not as a triumphant warrior, but as a survivor shaped by sacrifice. The reunion between Beren and Lúthien is restrained, almost reverent. Tolkien avoids excessive emotion, allowing the weight of shared suffering to speak for itself. Love here is not celebration, it is recognition. Two wills, tested separately, now stand united. Yet the chapter does not end in relief. Victory carries consequence. The world does not pause to honor courage. Instead, the narrative moves forward with renewed urgency. Morgoth remains undefeated. The Silmaril still rests upon his crown. Tolkien maintains narrative strength by refusing premature resolution. Hope expands, but danger deepens. Huan the Hound's role emerges more clearly in this chapter, reinforcing the theme of loyalty beyond speech or oath. His presence reminds the reader that courage is not exclusive to heroes of legend. Fidelity itself becomes heroic. This inclusion strengthens the story's emotional range while maintaining thematic unity. As Beren and Lúthien plan their next steps, the narrative subtly shifts from rescue to challenge. Their partnership becomes central. No longer is one pursuing while the other waits. Purpose is shared. Tolkien emphasizes balance, mortal and immortal, strength and grace, endurance and initiative. This harmony reinforces connectivity across the entire arc of the story. The chapter closes with forward motion rather than reflection. Escape becomes preparation. Survival becomes resolve. The reader senses that what lies ahead will demand more than bravery. It will demand sacrifice at a scale not yet faced. Yet the tone is no longer desperate. Love has proven its power, not as fantasy, but as force. The lesson of Chapter 5 is transformative. Hope does not arrive when darkness ends. It arrives when someone enters darkness willingly. Leadership is revealed not by command, but by action taken at personal cost. Lúthien teaches that courage does not wait to be asked. It moves when silence becomes betrayal. If this chapter offers a call to action, it is this: do not wait for permission to defend what gives your life meaning. When love becomes action, even the strongest chains weaken. And when fear loses its voice, the world begins slowly, painfully, to change. Chapter 6, Into Morgoth's Shadow. The quest becomes real. What does it mean to step willingly into the enemy's lair, knowing the world beyond may never see you again? When danger is absolute and hope seems fragile, does love become courage, or courage become love? Imagine walking toward a fortress of darkness with nothing but faith in your purpose. Every heartbeat a challenge to despair. In this chapter, the quest transforms from promise into action, where commitment and courage are tested against the greatest evil of the age. Beren and Lúthien, united by loyalty and love, leave the relative safety of Doriath to enter lands tainted by Morgoth's influence. Tolkien's narrative emphasizes contrast. The world outside is harsh, corrupted, and filled with creatures of fear. Yet the couple's resolve transforms every step into significance. Danger is immediate, not symbolic. Every encounter, every shadow, carries moral and emotional weight. By establishing such stakes early, Tolkien ensures that the reader perceives the journey as real, dangerous, and consequential. The journey toward Angband is a test of endurance, cunning, and unity. Beren and Lúthien face not only physical obstacles, but moral ones. Allies appear and vanish. Choices must be made in isolation, and each decision carries consequences beyond imagination. Tolkien maintains a seamless flow by alternating between action and reflection. The narrative never feels rushed. It mirrors the arduous pace of the characters' travel, while preserving engagement. The landscape itself becomes a character. Dark forests, desolate plains, and corrupted rivers reflect the externalization of Morgoth's influence. The environment tests both skill and spirit, emphasizing that courage is inseparable from awareness. Tolkien's attention to detail ensures that the setting is never mere backdrop. Every tree, shadow, and gust of wind reinforces the chapter's central tension. The inevitability of confrontation with evil and the persistence of hope. Along the way, the couple encounters remnants of other struggles, fallen warriors, abandoned encampments, and evidence of Morgoth's tyranny. These encounters are neither decorative nor gratuitous. They deepen connectivity across the legendarium. Past events echo into the present journey, reinforcing continuity and making the reader feel the layered reality of the First Age. Each memory and reference strengthens the thematic link between personal sacrifice and historical consequence. Lúthien's power and ingenuity begin to dominate the narrative in this chapter. She does not simply follow Beren, she shapes the journey, solves problems, and protects him in moments where mortality limits his ability to act. Tolkien emphasizes balance, mortal and immortal, strength and wisdom, courage and foresight. This duality highlights the central thesis of the story, that love and action, when inseparable, become transformative forces. Their path is complicated by encounters with Morgoth's servants, including orcs, spies, and sorceress traps. Each confrontation reveals character. Beren's steadfastness, tempered by prior suffering, contrasts with Lúthien's daring and subtlety. Their combined approach demonstrates that courage is not recklessness. It is deliberate, guided by knowledge and purpose. The chapter's strength lies in this moral clarity, which maintains tension without confusion or artificial dramatization. Tolkien uses dialogue sparingly, letting silence and observation convey emotional depth. The moments between characters are charged with unspoken understanding, trust forged under pressure, fear mitigated by shared commitment. This narrative strategy enhances flow, creating a rhythm that mirrors the alternating struggle and reflection inherent in any heroic quest. The reader experiences suspense and intimacy simultaneously. The culmination of the chapter occurs as the couple nears Tol Engorhoth, and Morgoth's reach becomes palpable. The fortress, described in grim, meticulous detail, looms as a symbol of all that opposes love and freedom. Tolkien ensures that the reader understands the stakes. The Silmaril, Beren's promise, and the survival of their bond are all on a knife edge. The chapter achieves tension not through arbitrary threat, but through moral and emotional investment. Each step forward feels earned. In addition to physical danger, Chapter 6 explores the psychological toll of the quest. Characters confront fear, doubt, and exhaustion. Yet they persist because their purpose is clear. Tolkien demonstrates that true courage is not the absence of fear, but action in its presence. Love becomes a lens through which endurance is understood, transforming suffering into meaning. Connectivity is reinforced through consistent thematic imagery. Shadows symbolize moral and physical danger. Song, loyalty, and memory symbolize endurance and guidance. Past chapters, lessons about commitment, sacrifice, and unity resonate here. Each narrative thread remains tied to the overarching story, ensuring cohesion across the evolving saga. The chapter closes with anticipation rather than resolution. Beren and Lúthien stand on the threshold of Morgoth's power, their bond strengthened by shared trials and sharpened by adversity. The reader is left understanding that the quest's greatest challenges are imminent, yet the protagonist's resilience offers hope. Tolkien's structure ensures that tension carries naturally into subsequent chapters. The lesson of Chapter 6 is unmistakable. Action guided by love transforms fear into purpose. Courage is not inherited, nor is it granted by fortune. It emerges from commitment sustained under pressure. Tolkien challenges readers to recognize that the pursuit of a seemingly impossible goal shapes character, bonds, and destiny alike. If this chapter offers a call to action, it is this: step into the shadow willingly, guided by your purpose. Let loyalty, love, and courage define your path, for it is in the crucible of danger that true strength and true meaning are revealed. Chapter 7. The Fortress of Fear and the Test of Unity. What is courage? When the enemy sees every step before you take it, when love is tested not in isolation, but in the midst of absolute danger, does loyalty endure, or does it fracture under pressure? Imagine standing before a fortress where shadows breathe and walls seem alive, knowing that one misstep could end everything. This chapter brings Beren and Lúthien to the heart of Morgoth's Reach, where the bond between mortal and immortal is forged in fire, darkness, and song. As Beren and Lúthien approach Talangorhoth, the narrative emphasizes contrast between light and shadow, freedom and confinement. The fortress itself is described not merely as a place, but as a presence, a living symbol of tyranny and despair. Tolkien uses the environment to heighten tension, making the setting an active participant in the story. Every gust of wind, creaking door and shadowed corner reinforces the stakes and aligns the reader with the character's peril. The couple's entry into the fortress tests both skill and trust. Beren's mortality is evident. Each step demands caution. Lúthien's immortality and magical power complement his endurance, but her actions are deliberate and grounded in strategy, not fantasy. Tolkien establishes that true heroism arises from cooperation and balance. The flow of the narrative is smooth, allowing action, suspense, and reflection to interweave naturally. Each decision builds on the last, preserving coherence while advancing tension. The first confrontation occurs almost immediately, as Sauron's minions seek to enforce control. Tolkien portrays these encounters with precision, emphasizing intelligence, cunning, and adaptability over brute force. Beren and Lúthien's responses highlight their unique strengths and the unity that has grown between them. Courage here is relational. It emerges from partnership and trust, not individual bravado. This thematic consistency reinforces connectivity across the narrative. Inside the fortress, the oppressive atmosphere serves as a crucible for character. Beren faces fear, amplified by isolation and vulnerability. Lúthien must balance her abilities with restraint to ensure both survive. Each trial underscores a key principle of the story. Leadership and courage are exercised not in the absence of danger, but in direct confrontation with it. The narrative strength lies in showing that moral and emotional stakes are inseparable from physical peril. Tolkien deepens tension through psychological complexity. Both Beren and Lúthien experience doubt, fatigue, and grief. Yet these moments are interspersed with clarity and decision. Their internal experiences are portrayed as vital to the progression of the plot. The flow of the chapter never stagnates. Moments of reflection heighten anticipation and make every action feel consequential. The reader senses both vulnerability and potency, a duality that reinforces thematic richness. The chapter's central climax occurs when Lúthien uses her song to confront Sauron directly. Tolkien portrays this as both literal and symbolic. The song is a weapon, a shield, and a declaration of autonomy. Evil's power falters not through violence alone, but through defiance, rooted in moral clarity and courage. The scene reinforces the story's thesis: love and commitment, when active, can challenge even the greatest darkness. Connectivity is maintained by linking this triumph to previous chapters, lessons about sacrifice, unity, and perseverance. Beren's active participation complements Lúthien's magical prowess. He navigates physical challenges, protects their path, and sustains the momentum of action. Tolkien emphasizes that courage is not hierarchical. Every contribution matters, whether mortal or immortal. This approach strengthens flow and ensures the narrative remains balanced, with each protagonist's role clearly defined. The psychological and moral stakes continue to escalate. The reader experiences a heightened sense of urgency, because every decision carries immediate consequence. Failure is not abstract. It is death, separation, or the collapse of purpose. Tolkien ensures that tension arises organically from circumstance, maintaining narrative integrity and readability. As the chapter concludes, Sauron is defeated and the fortress destabilized, but Tolkien resists, offering complete relief. The danger of Morgoth's influence still looms, and the Silmaril remains a distant, nearly unattainable goal. The resolution of this chapter is partial and realistic, allowing forward momentum while reinforcing the ongoing stakes. This careful pacing strengthens narrative cohesion and thematic resonance. The chapter's lesson is profound. Unity under pressure transforms fear into strength. Leadership emerges, not from dominance or control, but from cooperation, sacrifice, and shared purpose. Lúthien and Beren demonstrate that courage is relational and action is moral. The chapter emphasizes that success is not the absence of danger, but the endurance of purpose through it. If this chapter leaves the reader with a call to action, it is this: face oppressive forces together, allow loyalty and love to guide decisions, and remember that courage is measured not in victories, but in the fidelity of action under extreme duress. Darkness is formidable, but unified resolve can bend its power, revealing the potential for triumph even in the shadow of overwhelming fear. Chapter 8. The Silmaril and the Shadow of Sacrifice. What does it mean to touch the object of a quest only to realize that desire alone cannot guarantee survival? When the ultimate prize is within reach, does courage strengthen or falter under the weight of expectation? Imagine standing before a gem whose light outshines the stars, yet carries with it the threat of death, betrayal, and loss. In this chapter, Beren and Lúthien confront the Silmaril, and the true cost of love and purpose becomes undeniable. Having overcome Talangorhoth and defeated Sauron, Beren and Lúthien enter Morgoth's guarded domain, moving from Perro into the epicenter of evil. Tolkien's narrative emphasizes the tension between proximity and danger. The closer they come to the Silmaril, the more intense the psychological and physical trials become. The fortress is no longer just a barrier of stone and steel. It is a manifestation of Morgoth's malice and ambition, designed to test heart, mind, and will. The reader feels the stakes not as abstract peril, but as immediate, intimate threat. The Silmaril itself is described in transcendent detail, its brilliance a symbol of beauty, desire, and unattainable perfection. Tolkien presents it as simultaneously inspiring and dangerous. Beren's longing to claim it is tempered by fear and moral reflection. This juxtaposition reinforces the chapter's thesis. The pursuit of greatness demands both courage and wisdom. Desire alone is insufficient. Understanding the consequences of action is essential. The narrative's strength lies in showing that heroism is not impulsive, but deliberate, grounded in purpose. Lúthien's role reaches its narrative zenith in this chapter. Her magical abilities, strategic intelligence, and unwavering resolve guide the path through the final obstacles to the Tolkien carefully balances her power with her moral consciousness. She does not act recklessly. Every step is measured, reflecting not only ability, but ethical discernment. The flow of the chapter mirrors this balance, alternating action with reflection, tension with strategic thought, creating a rhythm that maintains reader engagement while deepening thematic resonance. Conflict escalates when Morgoth's forces detect their intrusion. Orcs, dark spirits, and traps intensify the peril. Yet Tolkien emphasizes that the greatest test is internal. Beren must navigate fear, temptation, and the awareness of mortality. Lúthien must reconcile her immortality with the need to protect a mortal life. Here, courage is inseparable from love. Their bond becomes the lens through which each challenge is met. The reader understands that the stakes are not merely physical but moral and emotional. The first true encounter with the Silmaril tests Beren's endurance and integrity. The gem's brilliance illuminates both his desire and the cost of claiming it. Tolkien avoids simplistic fantasy. The Silmaril is not a tool of instant triumph. Its power challenges understanding, requiring discernment and fortitude. This careful treatment strengthens the narrative's connective tissue, linking the object of desire to the journey's moral and emotional lessons. Lúthien's song once again demonstrates the power of courage intertwined with love. Her melody disorients Morgoth's guards, penetrates barriers, and provides Beren the opening he needs. Tolkien shows that strength manifests in multiple forms. Physical action, magic, and song are unified by intention. The chapter maintains thematic coherence by presenting varied forms of courage, all stemming from purpose and loyalty. This unity reinforces connectivity with previous chapters. Beren's final grasp of the Silmaril is bittersweet. Achievement is shadowed by danger. Triumph is inseparable from risk. Tolkien emphasizes the cost inherent in all significant action. Desire fulfilled does not eliminate challenge. It magnifies responsibility. This lesson is central to the chapter. Courage is measured not by acquisition but by endurance, judgment, and ethical fidelity in the face of consequence. The chapter's climax interweaves tension, danger, and relational dynamics. Morgoth's awareness threatens both protagonists, forcing rapid decisions that test trust, ingenuity, and moral clarity. The narrative flow remains precise, avoiding abrupt shifts. Every action is consequential, every choice morally resonant. The reader experiences suspense while absorbing the ethical and emotional dimensions of heroism. As Beren and Lúthien escape with the Silmaril, Tolkien emphasizes sacrifice and interdependence. Neither could have succeeded alone. Their combined courage, skill, and commitment transform peril into achievement. The chapter reinforces the overarching thesis of the tale. Love and purpose, intertwined, create the force capable of confronting overwhelming darkness. The closing moments of the chapter are reflective yet forward-looking. The Silmaril is claimed, yet the cost is clear. The journey has irrevocably changed them, and new challenges await. Tolkien ensures the chapter ends not with complacency, but with anticipation, maintaining flow and continuity for subsequent events. The reader is prepared to follow the protagonists into further trials, understanding that every victory carries consequence. The lesson of Chapter 8 is profound. Courage must be balanced with wisdom. Love must be intertwined with action, and desire must coexist with responsibility. Tolkien challenges readers to see that achieving what is most precious demands sacrifice, judgment, and moral clarity. If this chapter offers a call to action, it is this: pursue your highest goals with both heart and discernment. Recognize the costs inherent in any meaningful quest, and let love, courage, and ethical integrity guide each choice, for only when purpose is inseparable from action does triumph hold enduring value. Chapter 9. The Cost of Triumph and the Shadow of Mortality. What does victory truly mean when the prize is won, but the journey's scars remain? When love and courage have conquered the impossible, does triumph bring joy or sober reflection? Imagine holding the ultimate symbol of beauty and power, yet feeling the weight of loss, mortality, and the inevitability of change pressing upon your heart. This chapter explores the aftermath of triumph, the consequences of action, and the enduring price of commitment. Beren and Lúthien emerge from Morgoth's fortress with the Silmaril, yet success is neither complete nor Tolkien emphasizes that the journey itself transforms its participants. The landscape they traverse is scarred by darkness, echoing both their trials and the world's fragility. Victory has not restored the natural order. It has revealed how precarious freedom truly is. The flow of the chapter is deliberate, alternating between external action and internal reflection, ensuring that tension and insight remain balanced. The physical consequences of their journey are immediate. Beren's mortal nature asserts itself. Fatigue, injury, and vulnerability remind both character and reader that triumph comes at a cost. Lúthien, despite her immortality, shares in the emotional and moral weight of the quest. Tolkien portrays the hero's endurance, not as heroic invincibility, but as deliberate resilience, emphasizing that courage is measured by persistence through suffering, not by the absence of danger. The couple's interaction highlights relational courage and the interdependence of mortal and immortal. Lúthien's guidance, support, and decisiveness complement Beren's determination. While Beren's steadfastness anchors her actions in reality, their partnership reinforces the thematic connectivity of previous chapters. Love and purpose are inseparable, and success is contingent upon collaboration, trust, and shared ethical commitment. Tolkien's narrative deepens with reflections on mortality and inevitability. The Silmarillion, brilliant and precious, becomes a reminder of the cost of desire. While it symbolizes achievement, it also embodies loss. Friends have died, sacrifices have been made, and the journey has altered both protagonists irrevocably. This duality strengthens narrative depth, ensuring the chapter's thematic resonance is rich and contemplative. Conflict does not end with the fortress's fall. Orcs, remnants of Morgoth's forces, and natural perils continue to challenge the travelers. Each encounter emphasizes vigilance and adaptability. Tolkien shows that triumph is not a static achievement, but a dynamic process requiring ongoing courage. The narrative flow remains smooth, allowing each event to escalate tension while reinforcing moral and emotional stakes. The chapter further explores grief and remembrance. Finrod's death, the losses of companions, and the weight of prior sacrifices shape both protagonists' understanding of heroism. Tolkien reinforces that courage and love exist within a moral framework. Actions carry consequence, and choices define character as much as outcomes. These reflections create connectivity across chapters, ensuring that past events resonate meaningfully with present challenges. Beren's possession of the Silmarillion introduces additional tension. Desire fulfilled brings ethical dilemmas. How to safeguard it, how to reconcile its value with mortality, and how to honor those who sacrificed for it. Tolkien uses this tension to explore the interplay of power, responsibility, and foresight. The chapter's strength lies in demonstrating that true heroism integrates achievement with wisdom and moral clarity. Lúthien's unwavering guidance illustrates the narrative principle that action is inseparable from moral vision. She mitigates risk, ensures ethical coherence, and maintains unity. Tolkien's portrayal highlights the balance between physical courage and spiritual or emotional insight. The flow between external danger and internal reflection is seamless, preserving readability and narrative cohesion. As the chapter progresses, Tolkien underscores the inevitability of future challenges. The Silmarillion's journey does not end with possession. It signals new trials, moral decisions, and the ongoing struggle against darkness. This narrative strategy ensures continuity, maintaining anticipation while grounding the reader in the consequences of prior actions. The emotional climax arises as Beren confronts the limits of his mortality. The juxtaposition of immortal and mortal perspectives amplifies the stakes, revealing the fragility of life and the endurance of commitment. Tolkien crafts these moments with subtlety, allowing reader empathy to deepen without melodrama. Love, courage, and mortality intersect, creating narrative richness. The chapter concludes with reflection rather than finality. The heroes have achieved their goal, yet the journey's consequences resonate. Tolkien emphasizes that triumph is a mosaic of action, endurance, sacrifice, and moral responsibility. Success is never absolute. It is defined by perseverance, ethical clarity, and the courage to continue, despite risk. The lesson of Chapter 9 is profound. Victory carries cost, courage carries consequence, and love demands endurance. Triumph is inseparable from sacrifice, and purpose is validated not by outcomes alone but by integrity sustained under pressure. Tolkien challenges the reader to recognize that every achievement has layers of moral and emotional weight. If this chapter issues a call to action, it is this: pursue your highest goals with awareness of the sacrifices they demand. Temper courage with wisdom, and let love guide your resolve. Triumph that ignores consequence is hollow. Achievement grounded in purpose endures, shaping both character and legacy. Chapter 10. Return through peril and the weight of destiny. What is the meaning of victory when the world remains dark, and the price of achievement presses heavily upon the soul? When the ultimate goal has been attained, does triumph lighten the heart or burden it with responsibility and reflection? Imagine leaving the enemy's fortress, clutching a treasure beyond measure, yet knowing that every step home carries peril, moral consequence, and the inescapable shadow of mortality. This chapter explores the journey home, where courage, wisdom, and love must navigate the after-effects of triumph and the ongoing threat of evil. Beren and Lúthien emerge from Tol Gorhoth changed. The Silmaril, brilliant and unyielding, is now in their possession, yet it casts a new form of shadow. Tolkien emphasizes that acquisition is not liberation, it is responsibility. Every step forward is weighted by moral, emotional, and physical consequence. The road home is fraught with danger, and Tolkien uses this journey to show that courage and purpose do not end with the completion of a quest, they evolve with it. The landscape itself mirrors this tension. Ravaged forests, desolate plains, and remnants of Morgoth's armies remind the reader that the world is still hostile. Tolkien ensures the flow remains dynamic. Peril is interspersed with reflection. Exhaustion alternates with strategy, and each scene reinforces the stakes while deepening the emotional resonance. The journey becomes both literal and symbolic a testing ground for endurance, integrity, and love. Their encounters along the return route underscore the challenges of vigilance and foresight. Orcs, spies, and corrupted creatures continue to test Beren and Lúthien, requiring careful coordination and decisive action. Tolkien presents danger as multifaceted. It is physical, moral, and emotional simultaneously. The protagonists' combined courage and intelligence highlight the chapter's central thesis. True heroism arises not from singular bravery, but from persistent, morally guided action in the face of sustained adversity. The narrative strengthens connectivity by reflecting on past sacrifices. Finrod's death, the loss of allies, and the hardships endured serve as both memory and motivation. Tolkien consistently links current action to prior events, ensuring thematic continuity across chapters. This approach maintains narrative coherence and reinforces the stakes, illustrating that victory is inseparable from historical and moral context. Beren and Lúthien's relationship evolves further under the pressure of their journey. Tolkien portrays their partnership as deeply reciprocal. Beren's mortal resolve anchors Lúthien's immortal strength, while her foresight and courage guide him through situations where mere endurance is insufficient. Their bond exemplifies the integration of love, action, and purpose. The narrative's flow is enriched by alternating perspectives and moments of internal reflection, giving readers a multifaceted understanding of heroism. The chapter also emphasizes the psychological toll of sustained danger. Both characters confront fear, doubt, and the haunting awareness of mortality. Tolkien avoids melodrama. Instead, he portrays these moments as natural consequences of experience. Courage is measured not by absence of fear, but by continued action despite it. These insights reinforce the ethical backbone of the narrative, ensuring that thematic depth accompanies suspense and adventure. Strategic problem-solving and resourcefulness are highlighted throughout the return journey. Beren and Lúthien's combined ingenuity allows them to evade detection, navigate the hostile terrain, and overcome obstacles. Tolkien shows that intellect, foresight, and collaboration are as critical to success as strength or magical ability. This emphasis strengthens the chapter's connective tissue, linking moral, intellectual, and physical forms of courage into a coherent framework. As the Silmaril's brilliance continues to draw danger, the chapter explores the moral complexities of possession. Desire fulfilled brings not only accomplishment, but also responsibility. Tolkien illustrates that victory does not erase challenge, it transforms it. The heroes must balance the pursuit of safety, the preservation of purpose, and the ethical implications of their actions. This interplay between achievement and responsibility reinforces the story's overarching thesis. The chapter's tension reaches a climax when Beren and Lúthien confront a final series of threats, forcing rapid decision-making and moral discernment. Success requires integration of all prior lessons: endurance, love, sacrifice, courage, and foresight. Tolkien structures these moments to maintain narrative rhythm, alternating suspenseful action with reflective pauses that emphasize character and thematic growth. By the chapter's conclusion, the journey's immediate dangers are mitigated, yet the narrative emphasizes ongoing responsibility. The Silmaril remains a potent symbol of both triumph and obligation, and the protagonists are irrevocably changed by their experiences. Tolkien leaves the reader with a sense of accomplishment tempered by awareness of cost and consequence, reinforcing narrative depth and ethical coherence. The lesson of Chapter 10 is clear. Achievement is inseparable from responsibility, and courage is most profound when sustained under consequence. Triumph is not merely the acquisition of a goal. It is the integration of purpose, action, and moral integrity. Tolkien challenges readers to recognize that enduring success demands continued vigilance, reflection, and ethical commitment. If this chapter offers a call to action, it is this: pursue your highest goals with awareness of the responsibilities they entail. Let courage, love, and moral clarity guide each step, for true heroism is measured not by the moment of victory alone, but by the ongoing strength to uphold what is precious in a world that remains unpredictable and perilous. Chapter 11. Bonds Tested and the Echoes of Sacrifice. How does one measure courage when survival is never guaranteed, and every step forward carries both hope and peril? When love and loyalty are intertwined, does triumph strengthen bonds or lay them bare to the harshest scrutiny? Imagine journeying through lands still shadowed by Morgoth's influence. Each moment a test of endurance, trust, and moral resolve. This chapter explores how sacrifice, unity, and the consequences of past choices shape the protagonist's path, preparing them for challenges that extend beyond mere physical danger. Beren and Lúthien continue their journey home, yet the narrative emphasizes that the journey itself is transformative. Tolkien illustrates the heavy cost of heroism, physical exhaustion, psychological strain, and the awareness of mortality create a tension that permeates every step. Even after acquiring the Silmaril, the world remains dangerous, and the hero's moral and emotional endurance is constantly tested. Flow is maintained by weaving action with reflective passages, keeping tension and introspection in harmony. The couple's interactions highlight the depth of relational courage. Beren's mortal fragility and Lúthien's immortal insight complement each other, forming a partnership that transcends simple companionship. Tolkien reinforces connectivity across chapters by demonstrating how past experience, sacrifice, and trials endured inform present decisions. Their decisions are never isolated. Every choice resonates with prior events, emphasizing the story's thematic coherence. Obstacles on their path are both external and internal. Tolkien introduces remnants of Morgoth's influence, hostile creatures, Thriceros terrain, and the lingering presence of fear to maintain suspense. Simultaneously, the psychological burdens of their quest weigh heavily. Beren confronts the inevitability of death, the fragility of hope, and the responsibility of carrying the Silmaril. Lúthien balances her magical abilities with empathy and foresight, ensuring that action is guided by both prudence and purpose. These dual layers of tension enrich the narrative and deepen thematic resonance. The chapter emphasizes the consequences of sacrifice. Every life lost along the journey, friends, allies, and even Finrod casts a shadow over triumph. Tolkien portrays these memories not as static reflection but as active moral and emotional drivers. Beren and Lúthien navigate their responsibilities not just toward themselves but toward the memory of those who have given all. This approach strengthens the Asyllike backbone of the narrative. Courage, love, and loyalty are inseparable from ethical awareness. Tolkien's treatment of fear and moral decision-making is nuanced. Courage is shown not as fearlessness, but as persistence in the face of danger. The protagonist's choices, guided by love and purpose, demonstrate that heroism is ethical as much as it is physical. Each step is a moral as well as strategic calculation, reinforcing connectivity to prior chapters and maintaining narrative cohesion. The psychological complexity of the protagonists is further developed as they encounter moral dilemmas. Should they risk exposure to protect others? How should they reconcile survival with the greater purpose of their quests? Tolkien portrays these questions with depth, allowing the reader to experience tension, empathy, and engagement with ethical considerations. The flow is smooth, with alternating action and introspection creating a rhythm that mirrors the psychological pace of the journey. The chapter's climax is both literal and symbolic. Beren and Lúthien face immediate threats, requiring courage, skill, and unity. Simultaneously, they confront the weight of all prior sacrifices and choices. Tolkien emphasizes that the culmination of the chapter is not only about survival, but about the moral integration of past experiences. Success is measured by ethical integrity, relational fidelity, and the ability to persist under sustained pressure. The resolution of Chapter 11 is partial, reflective, and forward-looking. Danger remains, yet the protagonist's bond is strengthened by shared endurance. Tolkien emphasizes that the journey's consequences extend beyond the immediate, linking past sacrifices to ongoing responsibility. Connectivity is maintained by reinforcing prior themes. Courage, love, loyalty, and ethical action remain central. The chapter's lesson is profound. Heroism is relational and moral, not merely physical. Sacrifice imbues action with meaning, and endurance under ethical challenge defines true courage. Tolkien challenges readers to recognize that victory is never final. It is measured by the ability to navigate ongoing consequences with integrity, loyalty, and love. If this chapter issues a call to action, it is this: maintain courage in the face of cumulative challenges. Let love guide decisions under duress, and honor the sacrifices that make achievement possible. True heroism arises from the integration of purpose, action, and moral responsibility, sustaining not only life, but the values that give life meaning. Chapter 12. The Path of Return and the Weight of Fate. What is the meaning of hope when the journey home is fraught with the echoes of danger and the shadows of mortality? When love has endured unspeakable trials, does triumph inspire relief? Or does it deepen the understanding of responsibility? Imagine retracing steps through lands scarred by evil, carrying a prize that embodies both victory and peril. In this chapter, Beren and Lúthien navigate the complex interplay of courage, morality, and fate as they seek to return from Morgoth's shadow with the Emerging from Tol Gorhoth, the narrative emphasizes the duality of triumph. Beren and Lúthien have achieved the seemingly impossible, yet the world remains unpredictable, and peril is not entirely past. Tolkien highlights that true heroism extends beyond singular victories. It encompasses endurance, wisdom, and moral discernment. The flow of the chapter interweaves reflection with action, maintaining tension while exploring the ethical dimensions of success. The couple's journey illustrates relational courage. Beren's mortal limitations contrast with Lúthien's immortal strength, creating a dynamic of interdependence. Tolkien demonstrates that love and purpose are inseparable from courage, and survival depends as much on moral and emotional unity as on physical prowess. Past sacrifices, including the loss of allies, and the experiences endured through previous chapters, inform every decision and action, reinforcing narrative connectivity and thematic coherence. External threats continue to challenge the protagonists. Stray remnants of Morgoth's forces, treacherous terrain, and the ever-present weight of fatigue test their resilience. Each obstacle serves as both literal and symbolic representation of the ongoing struggle against evil and the demands of responsibility. Tolkien ensures that tension is consistent, with narrative flow balancing suspense and introspection, allowing the reader to experience the physical and moral stakes simultaneously. Lúthien's agency is emphasized throughout. Her magical abilities, strategic intelligence, and ethical clarity guide the journey, ensuring that actions are deliberate and consequences considered. Tolkien portrays her as a moral and practical compass, shaping events and maintaining cohesion between past lessons and present challenges. Her leadership demonstrates that heroism is multifaceted, integrating intellect, courage, and moral foresight. Beren's character is deepened through the ongoing confrontation with mortality and responsibility. The Silmaril, though a symbol of achievement, carries with it the weight of legacy, ethical duty, and the consequences of desire. Tolkien portrays Beren's reflections and decisions as central to the narrative's strength, ensuring that triumph is inseparable from moral awareness. Courage is framed as action guided by both love and ethical clarity. The narrative further explores sacrifice and memories of lost companions and past trials inform the protagonist's decisions, reinforcing the relational and moral dimensions of heroism. Tolkien consistently integrates past experiences into present choices, maintaining connectivity and thematic richness across the story. The reader perceives that courage and love are tested, not only in the heat of immediate danger, but also in the ethical navigation of past and future consequences. Chapter 12's climax intertwines external peril and internal reflection. Beren and Lúthien face the ongoing risk of exposure, natural hazards, and moral dilemmas simultaneously. Success requires unity, trust, and the application of lessons learned from prior trials. Tolkien emphasizes that heroism is measured by persistence, moral integrity, and relational fidelity, rather than by the simple acquisition of treasure or survival. As the chapter concludes, Beren and Lúthien progress further toward home, their bond strengthened and refined. The Silmarill's brilliance continues to symbolize both triumph and responsibility, and the protagonist's awareness of ongoing challenges prepares the reader for future trials. Tolkien maintains narrative continuity, balancing suspense, reflection, and ethical contemplation to preserve flow and coherence. The lesson of Chapter 12 is profound. Heroism is ongoing, integrating courage, morality, and relational fidelity. Triumph is inseparable from responsibility, and love is inseparable from action. Tolkien challenges readers to recognize that the consequences of achievement extend beyond the moment of success, and that enduring courage demands wisdom, ethical clarity, and persistent commitment. If this chapter offers a call to action, it is this: pursue your highest goals with both courage and ethical awareness. Maintain unity with those you trust, and recognize that every achievement carries ongoing responsibility. True heroism is the integration of love, moral integrity, and enduring action, shaping not only the self, but the legacy of all who share in the journey. Chapter 13, Shadows of the Past and the Burden of Memory. How does one carry the weight of past sacrifices while moving forward toward a future that remains uncertain? When triumph has been achieved, does reflection deepen gratitude or magnify sorrow? Imagine traversing lands scarred by history, haunted by echoes of loss, yet guided by love and purpose. This chapter explores how memory, responsibility, and courage intertwine, shaping both character and destiny as Beren and Lúthien continue their journey home. The narrative begins by revisiting the profound costs of the quest. Tolkien emphasizes that heroism is inseparable from sacrifice. Companions lost, perils endured, and the shadow of mortality all linger. Beren and Lúthien's awareness of these consequences informs every step, illustrating that courage is not only physical, but moral and emotional. The flow alternates between action and reflection, allowing the reader to engage with suspense while contemplating ethical and emotional stakes. The protagonist's relationship is tested under the weight of shared memory. Beren's mortal perspective, sensitive to loss and fleeting life, contrasts with Lúthien's immortal endurance and foresight. Tolkien shows that unity is forged not merely in action, but in shared acknowledgement of suffering and hope. Their bond strengthens through mutual understanding and ethical commitment, reinforcing thematic connectivity across chapters. External threats remain present, but are complemented by internal struggles. The heroes encounter remnants of Morgoth's influence, unpredictable terrain, and subtle dangers that demand constant vigilance. These obstacles are portrayed not merely as physical challenges, but as catalysts for moral decisions. Tolkien underscores that heroism involves navigating both immediate perils and ethical dilemmas, enhancing the narrative's strength and depth. Memory serves as both guide and burden. Reflections on lost allies and prior choices shape current decisions, illustrating that past actions carry enduring consequences. Tolkien integrates these reflections seamlessly into the narrative flow, ensuring that each memory reinforces relational, ethical, and thematic coherence. The reader experiences tension, empathy, and insight simultaneously, deepening engagement with the protagonist's journey. Lúthien's agency remains central. Her strategic intelligence, magical skill, and moral clarity guide not only their path, but also Beren's actions. Tolkien emphasizes that courage is relational. It emerges from unity, trust, and the ethical application of knowledge and strength. This chapter reinforces the principle established in prior narratives. Heroism is inseparable from moral integrity and collaborative effort. Beren confronts the fragility of mortality, reflecting on the limitations imposed by human life. Tolkien portrays these reflections with subtlety, balancing introspection with forward movement. Courage is framed as persistence under ethical and existential pressure, while love functions as both motivation and stabilizing force. The narrative maintains smooth flow by interweaving suspenseful encounters with reflective passages, mirroring the rhythm of lived heroism. The chapter's climax blends immediate danger with moral and emotional intensity. Beren and Lúthien must navigate threats that test both skill and judgment, demonstrating that success is not the product of brute force, but of strategic, ethically grounded action. Tolkien maintains suspense while reinforcing thematic resonance. Courage, loyalty, love, and ethical clarity are inseparable components of heroism. Resolution in this chapter is reflective rather than final. Beren and Lúthien advance toward home, their bond strengthened by shared memory, endurance, and mutual reliance. The Silmarill's brilliance continues to symbolize achievement entwined with responsibility. Tolkien balances anticipation and reflection, preserving narrative cohesion and preparing the reader for subsequent trials. The lesson of Chapter 13 is profound. Memory shapes courage, love reinforces ethical action, and the weight of past sacrifice informs future decisions. Triumph is inseparable from responsibility, and heroism is defined by the integration of moral integrity, relational fidelity, and enduring action. Tolkien challenges readers to recognize that the journey's value lies as much in ethical and emotional growth as in tangible achievement. If this chapter issues a call to action, it is this: honor the sacrifices that precede success. Let past experiences guide but not burden, and act with courage and ethical clarity. True heroism is measured not by victories alone, but by the sustained integration of love, responsibility, and moral action throughout life's unfolding journey.